everybody. This is Edwin, the Magic Engineer, and I thought maybe I would actually change the schedule around a little bit, do something a little bit different today. Today I would do story time with Edwin. And what's the story I'm going to talk about? I've got two neat stories that I think you guys might actually enjoy. And one of them has to do with a neat interaction that happened at a game shop back in Oregon years ago at a vintage game. And another one happened real recently, actually, after I started this Magic channel. So there's two cards specifically that this relates to. The first one is right here. I'll show it in just a second. But what happened was I was playing in vintage tournaments at a shop called Rainy Day Games that was off of TV Highway in kind of Beaverton and Hillsborough area, kind of out next to Portland. And these vintage tournaments were non-proxy tournaments. So you had to actually have good cards to be really competitive. And most people that showed up to that tournament didn't. But there was a local player base that really wanted to play vintage because they wanted to just use older cards. So these guys would show up every week and they would have their own homebrew decks. And it was honestly a pretty cool little event that was going on. And I had a tier 1 vintage deck that I called Gifts Slaver. That was a build off of Control Slaver. And that deck has evolved over the years. And I actually did a deck tech with that video. And I'll link it right above right now, one of the more later versions of that actual deck. But I brought that deck out to that tournament. And when I played it at the tournament, of course, you know, the guys there didn't really honestly have a prayer against it because it was a very good deck and I piloted it for quite a while. So it wasn't very fun for them. And that was kind of sad. But at the same time, I just wanted to just play the game. So the next week, I showed up again. And they seemed a little bit bummed that I was there again. And so I decided to try something different. What I actually did was I beat the first guy in game 1 all the way through. Game 2, I took him down to 1 life and then I conceded and just gave him that game. On game 3, I took him down to 1 life and then conceded again. So he got to have the match win. I got to play my deck. And then I did the same thing with the next guy and the same thing with the next guy. And it was kind of comical. Everyone in the store was kind of like looking at me like, what's wrong with this guy? But I didn't care. I just wanted to play my cards. I didn't care about getting last. And I wanted these guys to actually have fun. And I figured if they had a chance to see this deck in action and to play against somebody, kind of have their shot at it, but not be removed from the tournament, it might actually be fun. And it did actually work out like that. Because many of these guys had never actually seen those cards in person. You know, of course, they'd heard about them. And they'd seen some like pictures or videos online of those kinds of, you know, competitive level of vintage decks going, but they never got to see one in person. So since they weren't losing to it, the whole attitude of the environment changed. And I kept showing up week after week, and I kept playing in matches and then just conceding and getting dead last. And everybody was having fun, and I was getting to know like that crew and the store owners pretty well. And the store owners, I think, definitely thought I was really weird. And something that used to happen before I showed up is every once in a while there'd be like another person or a couple people that would show up with vintage powered decks, and they would normally just mop the floor with like everyone that was there. Well, on like my 3rd or 4th week there, they showed up again, but this time I was there. And when I played against that guy, I did not concede. I beat him into the dirt and then just let that sit and then conceded all the rest of my matches the rest of the day, which basically put me in dead last. But since he had lost to me, his record was so bad he didn't have a prayer of taking 1st or 2nd at the tournament because he had a match lost to somebody who did so badly. So the guys that were showing up every week, they thought that was pretty cool. And one guy in particular, he kind of made it his mission goal to try to beat my Gift Slaver, my vintage deck. So what he did is he started putting tons of hate into his deck. He started packing Red Elemental Blasts, and he started putting Trinisphere and Sphere of Resistance and Gorilla Shamans and just anything to just blow up and disrupt what I was actually doing. But his deck didn't really have a lot of synergy. It was just tons of hate. But his goal that he wanted to beat was just my deck. So so that was some really fun matchups, and a couple of the games are really close, and he enjoyed it so much that at the end of it, he made sure of you know, one of my last times there, he told me that this whole kind of series had been so fun, and he enjoyed just kind of the different attitudes so much that he actually gave me this card. And it is a foil Gifts Ungiven, and it's a very precious card to me because it was a special card to him, and at the time he gave it to me, Champions of Kamigawa wasn't very old, so that probably gives you a good time frame of like when this all happened. And Gifts Ungiven was a huge card in my deck, and I didn't have a foil of it, and he gave me that. And so I always remembered that, and I thought it was really cool. And you know what's funny is like I actually forgot the guy's name, so I wish I could recall it, but I don't. But that was the time frame, and that was the shop. Rainy day game, so maybe somebody watching this someday can say that was me, or I remember that. Anyways, story number 2. Something neat happened recently. So as you guys know, I started this YouTube channel, and it's been a lot of fun, and I've met an awful lot of people, and I get to do weird things like this. You know, just get dressed up or do something goofy on the internet and let people laugh at me, and I'm okay with people laughing at me. So anyways, I've also lately been trying to give advice on like cards I think might price spike, or give recommendations about like ways to get into old school format, show budget decks, help people kind of build up their collections. And as you guys know, I'm not getting paid anything for this. I have no sponsors, and YouTube has yet to pay me a single cent for like any of the videos that I've actually run. This is all just for fun pretty much at this point. Well, one of the people who has been watching actually reached out to me on Instagram after I left the post and said, you know, that I'm almost completed with my dual land set again. I only needed like 3 more dual lands. And he reached out to me and he said that he just thought it was really cool what I was doing. And he shared a story about himself, about some hard times that he had actually gone through. And it was just really, you know, it was really touching that he had gone through that, and we were chatting back and forth, and he offered to give me a dual land that he had laying around. And he said he just, you know, he'd be more than happy to give it to me, and so I could actually use it, and he would know that he had done something nice for me, for someone that he thought was a good person. And I was just blown away. I mean, nobody had ever offered something like that before. And since it was a dual land and it was a bit more expensive card, I wanted to do something to let him know that this was pretty meaningful to me, and that this wasn't going to be something that I was going to be like trying to like profit in any way off of. So I thought about it for a bit, and I realized, well, you know what? What I could actually do is I could actually ask him to sign it. And then every time that card comes out, if I'm playing a game and this card pops out, I can be like, there's his card. You know, this, and when I think about this person, I can think about the story that he shared and just the things that he's gone through in his life, and I can say a little prayer for him that, you know, all those darker times are gone and that his life continues to go well, and I can just kind of remember what he actually did for me. And so I don't want to say his name because I don't know how he feels about all of that, but I do want to actually show the card that he gave me. And it was this card. It was a revised Badlands. And again, it's a very special card to me now. And you'll notice there's a signature on it. Well, yeah, I figured the best way I can let him know that this card actually mattered a lot to me, and it wasn't going to be something I was going to try and profit off of, I asked him to sign it. And if he signed it, then it would be hard for me to ever sell this card, because someone's going to look at it and say, well, that's not Rob Alexander's signature. Who's this signature on it? But I can say, oh, it's such and such person, and I can tell the story, and I can just kind of relate, you know, what a neat community we've basically got in old school, and just how much the people in this format they're just sometimes just, you know, a bit more mature about things. They can just reach out into each other's lives and get to know each other, and we can build friendships and do cool things, and the focus doesn't become so much just winning games anymore. And when you have this kind of community, it's not just about like, I just want to beat everyone at my Friday Night Magic, and I want to justify my existence and prove that I'm a worthy person. At this kind of point in like old school and other formats, you just kind of want to get to know people you want to hang out. I mean, all the old school guys over in Sweden, they all sit down and have a beer, and even if their format isn't the most balanced thing in the world, they don't care because it's just fun and they enjoy it, and the nostalgia in it is huge. And this community is definitely something. It makes all of this worth it, like doing all these games and all these videos and everything. So that's it. Those are the 2 stories I had to share. So thank you, both of you, for the cards and the good memories. And I'll talk to this guy and make sure that he's okay with me mentioning his name online. And if he is, then in future videos, when I bring the card out, I'll mention his name. And maybe not just I can pray for him when I see the card, but maybe some of you could too. You know, when you see that video, or maybe when you play your own Badlands, think of this guy and say a little prayer for him. So anyways, thank you everybody. This has been Story Time with Edwin. And yeah, how nerdy is this, right? Anyways, bye everybody.